Join me in welcoming Governor Jennifer Granholm.
Thank you, my dear. Love that, Stacy. You know, Stacy has, not only did she win the Rising Star Award, but she has got awards up the wazoo. You know, I'm sure, I don't know if she mentioned this, you know, governing official, public official of the year, the JFK New Frontier Award. In our office, we would call her affectionately a KAB, which is a term of endearment, meaning kick-ass broad. So, all right. So I'm about to introduce some other KABs, rising stars. And when I say their name, they're going to walk up and join us. Just a brief intro, and we're going to get into a conversation about the greatness of women in politics, but especially starting at the local level. You'll see Cristina Garcia is a California Assemblywoman. She is a math teacher turned activist and government reformer. She works to recruit more women into the California state legislature. Please welcome, where are you? Where are you? All right, please welcome Cristina Garcia. Awesome. Charnel Herring is a Virginia delegate. She has gone from homeless teen to a fighter for women and families in the Virginia House of Delegates. And love this, she is the first African American to lead the Virginia Democratic Party. We love that. So welcome. Our next panelist is Ayanna Presley. Ayanna is a Boston City Councilwoman. Yes. She was the first woman of color ever to be elected to the Boston City Council. She has founded the Committee on Women and Healthy Communities. She is this year's winner of the Gabby Giffords Rising Star Award. Awesome. And then finally, welcome Mickey Solages. She is a New York Assemblywoman. Mickey is the first person of Haitian descent ever elected to the New York State Assembly. She's been, love all these firsts, right? She's been helping her community recover from Hurricane Sandy. She's been fighting for families in foreclosure. Why don't we give a big welcome to all of these great chicks in charge? And you, I think, do you have cards at your table? Or maybe you will. But we're going to have you ask questions as well, one way or the other, at some point. So I'm going to kick this off and get their opinions, and then we want to have you guys weigh in as well. All right, so let me start off. Cristina, let me start with you because you are somebody who has recruited women into, or at least been trying to recruit women into the California State Assembly. We've all been trying to recruit women. I'm wondering from your perspective, what are the most effective messages that you have tried out on women?
So I've only been here in the State Assembly this is my third year, at the beginning of my third year, and so it's been a little bit of fail forward, but I like to tell women, why not you? Why are you waiting for someone else to do it? And if not you, then who else are you gonna help me find? You know, your community, so help me find somebody else to have a responsibility. I was one of those women. I was in my math classroom, loving what I was doing, and I was never gonna run for office. And a lot of community members said, we need leaders like you, and I said no. And I went to Argentina for 6 weeks, and I felt guilty when I was there because I felt like I had a responsibility to step up to the plate and be the type of leader I had been telling my community we deserve. And so I finally decided to run. But you know, when I looked around, there was no one else there. And so I tell folks, it's you. You are the leader here today, and I'm sorry that there's no one else, but you have a responsibility. And if you don't want that responsibility, what are you doing to create a farm? because this is not okay. I left a profession that I love, where I was at the top of my game as a mathematician, to become a second-class citizen because we're less than 25% in the state legislature in California. And so that's unacceptable. So I tell women, you have a responsibility. It's you. And if it's not you, then how are you going to help me find the woman in your community to make it be a woman?
So getting women to see that responsibility, Ayanna, is that something that you also convey to women in trying to recruit them? And what was effective on you?
Strong arming was very effective on
Strong.
No, in all seriousness, what I encourage women to do is to just operate with a sense of entitlement. I think we don't operate with the same sense of entitlement that our male counterparts do. And it starts very early. I'll give an example. Whenever I go to a school to meet with and listen to and address students, I'll say, I represent the entire city of Boston. Does anyone know how many people live in the city of Boston? And the boys will, all their hands will shoot up quickly, and they'll be saying, 3 million people, 5 million people, 1 billion. The boys are not afraid to be wrong. And the girls don't raise their hand because they're afraid to get it wrong. And so it starts that early in life, and it just continues on. And I think one of the greatest barriers is that women have insecurities about the fact that they don't know everything. Guess what? The boys don't either. They just fake it well. So, you know, what I tell women is to operate with a sense of entitlement and to get out of your own way. We'll keep telling ourselves we need one more degree, one more credential, one more this, but your life experience is what qualifies you, and government desperately needs your lens of experience and your perspective.
Wait, is the Boston City Council your first elected office?
It's my first elected office. I ran for the first time in 2009. But prior to that, I'd worked in government for some 16 years. I worked for Senator John Kerry for 11 years, Congressman Kennedy for 4 years, and I was very content with being the person behind the person. But like most women, I was drafted to run. So.
Right. Were you drafted to run too, Mickey?
Sort of. Well, I first like to thank Emily's List for this great opportunity and all of you for empowering so many young ladies out there. I come from a place, New York, Long Island, where Ronald Reagan once said that if a Republican died and went to heaven, it would look like Nassau County. So there weren't many people like myself, you know, out there running for office. So, you know, many people came up to me and said to run, but I just looked around and said there weren't people like me, young, African American, women especially, who were active. And you can see that state legislatures all across the country don't have enough women. I think the statistic is 24%. So we're lacking the diversity needed. And so the message that I tell young women is that the hush mouth doesn't get fed. And if we as women are not loud in making demands, we're never going to get paid sick leave. We're never going to get initiatives such as affordable childcare. The list goes on.
So this is your first race then too, your first office.
I was a librarian before this.
You were a librarian.
Yeah. So yeah, librarians. Woo, go libraries. And I just ran because
Was there something that made you mad? What got you to be able to move behind the stacks and out into the public?
I like that one. I gotta use it. At first, I was always telling people I was very afraid to speak in public. I was always apprehensive that people didn't want to hear what I wanted to hear or what to say. And so what got me to really move was that there weren't issues that people weren't talking about. There were issues like education and providing universal pre-K to a younger generation. And it just upset me that these issues weren't being discussed. And so that really motivated me to run.
Awesome, awesome. Now, Charnel, you have such an interesting background. And I'm guessing that you were probably both motivated and invited to run?
Oh. Motivated, yes. Invited, no.
Really?
No,
Oh.
no.
Tell
I
us
was
then.
told, do not run.
Wow.
This is not for you. Do not start something else. Start at school board. I was motivated to run because of my life experiences. Being homeless as a child, having to work, to advocate for homeless people in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I knew that my skill set was good with state politics. What I did in the community, I was always finding myself in Richmond, but I was never told that I should run, and I was actually discouraged to. And we do encourage women to run. We want to ask women, but I always tell women, don't sit around and ask for someone you to run. for you to run, because if I sat around and waited, I'd still be waiting. I'd still be waiting.
So it was your experience that caused you to say, here I am, send me.
Right. It was my experience. I mean, how many homeless people do you know
Right.
end up in elected office?
Right.
And I wanted to show that young people, I was homeless when I was 16, lived in a hotel with my mom, we just couldn't afford it anymore, I lived in a homeless shelter. I wanted to do this for every 16-year-old in high school that's out there who's suffering right now.
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because these women all have experiences of deciding that they're going to run, not because of themselves, but because of some other cause, right? That's what's
Absolutely.
the motivating factor, right? Right?
Absolutely.
It's not about you, it's about changing the world. And I think
I find that's true for women. It's not about the resume, it really is about purpose.
exactly.
Absolutely.
All right, so given that your motivation was about something else, something beyond yourself, what is the single most important piece of legislation or act that you have taken on that you're most proud of? Tell the group what you are totally proud of having done. And maybe we'll start with you.
Well, definitely in New York State, we're trying to find our way to women's equality. There's a great, thank you. There's 10 points that we're trying to pass that encompass, ending pregnancy discrimination, making sure that women are not discriminating when they're looking for housing, when they're victims of domestic violence, and most importantly, protecting a woman's right to choose. And unfortunately, we keep getting stopped because some men out there don't believe that we have, it's our body, it's our choice. And so definitely we're fighting to make sure that that piece of legislation passes this legislative season.
Awesome. And your sponsor.
I'm one of the sponsors too. Yes.
Awesome. Great. Ayana.
What I'm proudest of, and it was a 3-year sojourn, and it was born out of a very broad and diverse coalition of advocates that I worked with to see it realized, and that is now some of you will say, we can't believe this didn't already exist, but it took me 3 years to get a comprehensive sex and health education curriculum that is culturally competent, age appropriate, medically accurate, and would also include access to condoms. It took me 3 years for our Boston Public Schools to adopt that as a wellness curriculum, and I am proudest of that. The bottom line is healthy students are better learners. The top 2 reasons young people were visiting our school-based health centers were with mental health challenges or sexual health questions. Further, the curriculum also includes healthy relationships, and given the uptick in intimate teen partner violence, I'm very proud of that, and I think that'll go a long way in getting our young people on a pathway to making fully informed, healthy choices.
Awesome. Darnell.
Well, actually, it's a 2-part question, because there's initiatives that I actually brought out this year with missing persons in Virginia, with the search for Hannah Graham and Morgan Harrington, and the unfortunate deaths that we're facing. I've now created a new category in Virginia called the critically missing adult, so that we will allow law enforcement to respond quicker when someone becomes missing in our state. But I said 2-part. The other thing is, in 2012, when we had the transvaginal ultrasound in the Commonwealth of Virginia, I was proud to have started the Reproductive Health Care Caucus in Virginia at the legislature, because I saw it coming in 2011, and we were ready. And I was proud to lead that fight to stop it in Virginia and all that extreme legislation. So. And that's why it's important that women lead, because it was our 3 male candidates who came back behind that and actually swept. We swept in Virginia, 3 Democrats, but they hung on to that. The importance of women having the ability to make their own health care decisions. It is between them and their doctor and their God, and no one else.
All right. All right, Christina.
I'm proudest of, I want to say that my community recruited me to run, but I was not endorsed by a single leader in my community or across the state when I ran, and they all told me not to run, and that it wasn't my turn, and I was the wrong type of person to be in office, which goes back to what I'm proudest about. We're changing the conversation about how you interact with your government and the type of elected that you want. So I'm proudest about convincing my peers to be better and leading by example. I'm proudest about leading our ethics reform at the state. I introduced an ethics package last year, got to the governor's desk, and he signed about 90% of that along the way. Simple things like if I get a fine, I'm going to make sure that the fine payment comes out of my pocket and not my donor's pocket. We increased those fines. And working on transparency and accountability, I stood up and I asked for 3 of my peers, Democrats, to resign when we were in the middle of scandal last year, and I stood up by myself for about 5 months, and I felt that pressure. But I'm proudest about being in the majority party, being a majority leader now in that house, and telling the rest of the country and California that you should expect more of your elected officials, and we will be better and leading by example.
All right. I'm going to ask a couple more questions, but I want you all to be thinking about what you want to hear from these up-and-coming future governors or senators or members of Congress and great local leaders as well. So on the local leader side of things, what is it that you guys think that women bring that is absent perhaps if the conversation is excluding us at the local level? So I'll go back down and start with you, Christine, and we'll come back this way.
You know, I think one of the biggest issues is our kids and our families and what's going on with our working moms at all levels. How do we make sure that if you choose to go to work or you have to go to work, your kids are going to be taken care of, they're going to be getting what they need in the conversation, and we need to be having that discussion on a regular basis. I am not a mother myself. I have a lot of friends and staff members who are, and I tell them that's your choice, and my job is to be supportive of that and help you navigate how you make it work in this reality. And it's not this idea that you can have it all. It's this idea that you could have what you want right now and you could go for it, and we're going to support you in that, whatever that might be. And that conversation is missing out there. I tell my friends not to ask me for any more grandkids. That's not my path, that I'm okay with that. But, you know, having those discussions openly that whatever you want it to be, whatever type of leader that's going to be, whether you're going to be the board CEO, whether you're going to be a governor, whether you're going to be running a nonprofit, whatever it is you choose to do, or whether you're going to be the best mom you want to be out there, that we're having those conversations and we're propping up women to have them be successful on their own terms. And I think without having women in local office representatives, we are letting the men tell us what we're going to be, who we're going to be, and it's on their terms and not our own.
Great.
I mean, certainly I think what's missing is we certainly need more women elected at all levels. And the perspective I think that a woman brings to legislation or initiatives is that to look at all sides of the issue and not be so headstrong and say, well, honestly, I'm right, is to look at what the other side, I always say, know what your enemy, your opposition is going to say, and to be able to counteract that. And I think when I look at my colleagues in the House and my female counterparts, they have a very good success rate at their legislation. And I think that's something that they bring to the table is that unique perspective to look at all angles. And you can call it compromise, but being able to realize that there is that counter argument out there and to show some acknowledgement of it, but still get what they need and what they want, which is strong pieces of legislation.
I would concur with that on the policy front. You know, women do govern and lead differently, and we do need more women in office to bring, again, that perspective. You know, we use that word diversity a lot, but the true power and meaning and benefit of diversity is not for some sort of contrived moment of kumbaya. It really is about welcoming a diversity of perspective and opinion and thought. And I mean, I just want to acknowledge the fact that this. And we spoke about the barriers for women and the deterrence to women running for office. There are some unique challenges facing women of color in running for office. And one of the challenges is that the electorate often is only embracing of one kind of narrative when it comes to a female candidate. So every place I went, people would ask me if I was married and if I had children. And there was an assumption that If I was not married, then I could not relate to their struggles. If I did not have a child within the Boston public school system, how could I advocate for the Boston public school system? And so why we're needed is that we need this diversity of narratives. Picking up on what Christina was saying, I just completely agree with that. And again, just our lens of experience. You know, I was raised by a single parent. My father struggled with addiction, was incarcerated most of my life. I'm a survivor of sexual violence. And all of those experiences have directly informed and shaped not just who I am as a person, but the policies that I champion.
So many great answers, but definitely there was always a a phrase that said that men are the head of a family, but I'll tell you that women are the neck, and when you have neck pain, girl, you never can get things done. And so, women have that sense of collaboration. Women make sure that things happen, and they make sure that it keeps going. When it comes to budget processes, when it comes to making legislation, sometimes there's gridlock. When women are there, it eliminates the gridlock, and things get going. And so women make sure that things get done. Really, in my household, my mother makes sure that things get done. And also in the House, when women are in the House, when women are in the Senate, things get done.
All right, so I totally agree with this. And since I don't think you guys have cards, I'm going to come down. And, oh, you do have a card, but you can also say a word. Why don't you stand up? Can you ask your question? Have at it.
Hi, thank you. You're all fabulous. You're all #1 in my book. I wondered, how have term limits helped or hindered progress?
Who wants to take it?
I'll just give an example. I mean, in Virginia, our governor is limited by his term, or her term, hopefully one day. So it's only 4 years. So any initiatives, and I've seen so many times, governors will.
I know.
It went out. Okay. Governors will tackle the issue of homelessness. Our last Republican governor did, but toward the end of the term. So what happens when the new governor comes in? And I think that's the danger of term limits, at least with our governor. House of Delegates, where I am, it's limitless. So then we can probably say, hey, there's a complacency there too as well.
I'd say on the term limit side, I think it's term limits are good for the executive branch because at 2 terms, you probably can get all of it done. I think it's so often too short in the legislative branch. People are just learning where the bathrooms are, and then they are running for Speaker of the House, Do you have a question? No. Oh, you're just saying hello. Anybody else who's got a question? Ellen, we'll let you have the mic. Hi.
Nice walking around. I thought this was going to be a nice, quiet, I'd hand in my card and nobody would ever know question. I want to know if you have a 5 to 10 year career plan and if you have a political plan to carry it out.
For all of them, right?
All of them.
Go down the line. Ayanna, start with you. You look like you're ready. She's jumping out of her seat.
Oh my goodness.
I'll say it.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to listen. I'm amongst friends, so let me just tell you the truth. Stop live tweeting right now. The truth. So I'm going to tell you my answer. It is what I believe. It is what I feel. But many people don't believe it. The truth is, in terms of my 5-year plan, listen, I work on every year, the media will ask me, what are you going to, every 2 years, what are you going to work on? And my issues don't change. I want to eradicate poverty. I want to break cycles of violence, every form. I want to reduce trauma in our communities. I want to uplift women and girls. So I have a very ambitious agenda. And I think that it's, although ambitious, that through incremental legislative action and a strength of policy advocacy that I can accomplish all those things. So what I'm focused on is impact. I love being a city councilor. The people of Boston have entrusted me with this awesome responsibility and honor. I get to actualize my values every day. I'm in a 3rd term. I'm running for a 4th term. So I'm very aspirational about this work. And wherever this work takes me and where I can have that impact, that's what I'm going to do. So, that's what I'm focused on right now is the work. Just focused on the work. So am I open to other opportunities that would allow me to have a greater impact and to continue doing this work? Of course. Look at Ellen. She doesn't buy it. You don't buy it, Ellen? That's the truth. It's the truth, Ellen. Okay.
Definitely myself 5 years ago, if you asked me if I was going to be an elected official, I would say, you're crazy. And so when I think about my 5-year plan, I want to make sure that we get enough women in elective office, and we also register more women. And so I want to make sure in my 5 years I have that impact, not only in the state, but also on the local level, making sure that women get out there and are empowered by great groups like Eleanor's Legacy or Emily's List as well.
Well, within this 5 years, I just was elected Democratic House Caucus Chair Thursday. So, so very short term, I'm looking to bring more women in the legislature. Yes, more Democrats, absolutely, but we actually have a nice young woman, Jennifer Boysko, who is running again, and the incumbent is retiring. So it looks like we'll probably pick up one. I don't want to talk too soon, but I'm really excited about that. So build more Democrats in our legislature. We only have 32 Democrats, and probably only 31 who are pro-choice. So I need to work on that and bring more so that we have more of an impact. And I will say this, my friend here, I just want to make sure that we have good policy. And if opportunities open up, they open up. But my goal right now is to make sure that we're electing more Democrats and more women in the Virginia legislature.
I have a simple goal to accumulate as much power as possible to leverage two things: bringing more resources to my community and getting more women elected into office. We are only 19 Democratic women in the state legislature of California, 40 million people, and we are only 19 Democratic women in the state legislature. I am now assistant majority leader. I am now on the campaign team. I am the co-chair for the Women's Caucus and spearheading that effort. We've recruited 7 women early this year for termed out seats. So you talk about what do term limits do? They allow me to go after those male seats and make sure we're gonna have a woman running early on and we're gonna be competitive. I am playing the same game the boys are playing to accumulate as much power and wherever that might take me. The difference is that it's not a means and an end to itself. The difference is that it's very clear that it has two purposes: to leverage resources from my community that has been underrepresented for way too long, and to make sure that by the time I'm done, we're closer to that 50-50 where we're supposed to be.
Right. Love it. I'm over here.
Jennifer,
Oh,
can I
you got
say
one
something
more?
else about that?
Yeah, of course.
I just wanted to pick up on that. It's important that more women are elected, not only so that we can tell our stories and inform policy and have parity, but it's important so that we are not an anomaly and a minority where we are. I'm proud to be the first woman of color elected to the Boston City Council, but I don't want to be the last. So this isn't just about, it's this one-off. Well, we just gave you that. Are you good for a while? We need to do this because we need to build a community, and that's why we need Emily's List. That's why we need Higher Heights. We need to be doing this work together. Thank you.
I love it. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is asked, right, when is enough women enough on the Supreme Court? And she says, when we have 9, right? All right. Pamela Keith.
First of all, I wanted to say how impressed and pleased I am to meet you all and see and hear about your great successes. I myself am running for political office right now in the great state of Florida, hoping to unseat Marco Rubio. And the hardest thing that I have faced as an upstart candidate is the question, well, how much money do you have, and how are you going to get more money, and where's the money? Show us the money, because that apparently is the only thing that's important at this stage. Have you run across that, and how did you overcome that?
Well, I answer that, yes, overcome it by getting the money. I mean, you have to raise the money. It's a reality. You have to. I mean, I've got this big fundraising goal I have to meet Because I tell you what, it's the unfortunate reality of politics. I mean, you have to raise the money, and why it's important is you got to get your message out. And your opposition is raising. And right now as we're sitting here, my opposition is probably on the phone making phone calls. But it's important that I be here to tell you, you've got to raise the money. And it's okay, you're gonna be fine, because I know you have a vision and you're running for a reason. But we wanna make sure your message gets out.
Let's just say that your opponent may be on the phone, but you are here before
Oh,
this
absolutely.
audience. So that's not a waste of time, hon.
And I wanna see you afterwards.
Anybody
raise
else
some-
want to respond to that question?
Just ask everybody that you know, everybody that you interact with. Make sure you get business cards, you network, and just talk about your issues, and people will believe in you. And make sure those small donations are in your back pocket, because those are the donations that count. So I wish you best of luck, and great work. You're at the right place right now.
All right.
Oh, right. So when I was sort of cutting my teeth in the business, we had this 3M mantra. So you need to raise the money in order to get your message out, and your message should be one that will resonate and will help to mobilize people. So money, message, mobilization. The last thing I want to say, there's so much emphasis on the fundraising challenges for women. But again, one of the biggest deterrents for women running are their personal finances. Women are disproportionately the primary caregivers. We have more single-headed households. I did something that many women do but don't talk about. I cashed out my 401k in order to run. So the challenge for women, was a big leap of faith. And unfortunately, it paid off. Thank you, Boston. But I do just want to I would be remiss if I did not make that point. It's not just about the challenge in raising money to run for office. It is about the personal challenges that are an impediment and a barrier for so many women.
Okay, I've got a card here that says when Pat Schroeder got to Congress, she was asked to sit in a corner at her first committee meeting. How did you deal with sexism once you are in office? And by the way, thank you for running. Who wants to take that?
I'll take it. First of all, Pat Schroeder's story. She was the first woman I saw, congressperson I saw, when my mom took me to Capitol Hill to lobby for the Spousal Protection Act. So I'm glad that she's such an inspiration to me. So dealing with sexism, as my mom told me on the playground, just ignore the boys, just ignore and do what you need to do. I mean, they're gonna continue to think about what they want to think about you, but you've got your purpose. You know what you want to do. You know what you want to achieve because you're running for office. Ignore that. I mean, it's easy to say, I know, and I know sometimes it gets to you, but you've got to, because otherwise they're going to get you off your game, and that's probably what they want to do. So just keep on doing what you're doing.
I appreciate you saying that. I completely agree with you on this, that we ought not to look for insult, because we got too much to do, right? And people don't want to elect somebody who perceives themselves as a victim, right? You are strong and powerful. You are not a victim. And I've got a brave young man here who's going to ask a question. Chris.
Thank you for saying I'm young. You made my day. You're all amazing. I echo you. You're all fabulous and so inspiring. So I don't know if anybody else had this experience walking through the wall of white photos on the way here. I looked, I couldn't find one. I don't know if anybody else saw a person of color, but I'm just curious how you're not only women trying to get elected in a majority male legislature, but also women of color. And I'm curious how that impacts the way you approach your work and particularly, the colleagues within the legislature.
I want to start with that. I think when you see the 19 Democratic women, there's a divide. A woman of color, and we're much younger, and our experiences are much different than our Caucasian counterparts oftentimes. And my biggest struggle is talking to the women about how we're not going to be the same, and there's diversity amongst us, and I'm not going to fit a cookie cutter, but they could be supportive of letting me be who I am and letting me shine in my own terms, and getting to that balance with some of the groups out there who have been doing that work and saying, how do I respect the work you've done, but how do we change that agenda a little bit to reflect a little bit more of my issues too, and my cultural sensitivity issues that I have to go home to. The fact that I want, when I go home, as proud as my parents might be, I'm still a failure because their biggest focus is family and that unit, and I'm not there every day. And so I have to go home and balance that on a regular basis, and I need them to be sensitive of that messaging when I go back home on a regular basis. And I'm going to be that leader and push back and tell family, hey, you have to also let me be different and let me be myself, the same way I'm asking my colleagues. But it's hard. It's a challenge on a regular basis. I'm not soft. I'm not warm. I am who I am. I'm prickly. I grew up blessed in a house with my mom telling me from day one, be who you want to be. The community will love and respect you for that, and that's who I am, and that's what I bring home. But it is challenging at times because I've been told, oh, I'm not lying to you, month in by a woman colleague of mine, you don't get it, you'll figure it out eventually. Because I didn't want to toe the same line that they wanted to toe, and that's not the reality I'm going home to on a regular basis. I'm going home on a regular basis to women who are working 2 jobs, who are leading the household, oftentimes being single moms, who are being told on a regular basis that they're not good enough or they can't do better. And that's a very different reality oftentimes of that struggle that they have, and they have so many layers that are already against them. If I'm a woman of color, if I'm a woman growing up in a poor community, if I'm a mom, if I'm a single mom, my income gets lower and lower, and that's a reality. And that privilege of saying, hey, get involved and do all these things, it doesn't always work out. I had that privilege that I was able to say, I'm going to be a community activist right now, and I'm going to teach part-time. But that's not the reality that I live in. My neighbors think I'm weird because I ride my bike someplace when I have a car sitting there. They think I'm weird that I don't rent out the extra rooms in my house. And that's privilege that I have, and I have to be aware that I come and I have a lot of privilege that my community members don't have, and sometimes my peers haven't been able to get that, and that's been a struggle of getting to that balance. I will say now, I am part of the leadership, I am part of the speakers team, and I think my peers are starting to figure out how to let me be myself and how we can have an agenda in tandem, because they broke those barriers for me. It's not lost on me. I'm there because of all those white women you saw on that wall and all the big fights they had for me, and so I have to respect that.
So I'll share a story with you. Yesterday I was with the incredible Elizabeth Warren, and we were riding the tram over for votes together. And we were talking about a recent, I don't know what news outlet reported this, but they characterized her as angry. They said, Elizabeth Warren needs to be, a lot less angry. And so I turned to Elizabeth and I said, join the club. And what I mean by that is, one of the biggest challenges for us as women of color is the racial stereotyping of our issues, how we communicate by the media. I consider myself to have a clarity of purpose, a strength of conviction. I'm very passionate. And you know what? Sometimes I'm angry too. And that needs to be okay, because I am going to be angry about injustice. But as a black woman, even by black women, I am discouraged from embracing that anger in the face of injustice. So that, again, is one of those unique things that faces us as women of color. The last thing I would say, when I ran in 2009, and I ran on a platform of wanting to save girls, and again, there had never been a woman of color elected to the Boston City Council. This is 100+ years. There had never been an African-American, Latina, or Asian woman to serve on that body. And you know who suffered for that? Everybody. The whole city suffered for that. And pundits said I couldn't win because they were worried that traditional voters would not support me, which is a codified way of saying white voters. They didn't believe that the city of Boston would rally around an agenda of poverty, violence, and trauma, and fighting for women and girls. And shame on them for stereotyping people and underestimating the people of Boston. So, media, get on board.
All right, last question is, of the women who came before you, who inspired you or taught you to be strong?
So many choices. Well, everyone here inspires me. I can look across the room and see so many women that I want to be like, and definitely I want to continue and thank our panelists today, because these women are also inspirational, and congratulations to you too. But definitely I have a few. Definitely my home senator, Senator Gillibrand, who's getting girls off the sidelines and talking about issues that really need to be talked about. Kathleen Rice, who, thank you. Yes. another amazing woman, Kathleen Rice, Shirley Chisholm, Frances Parker, who was who was an amazing woman who first lobbied for raising the minimum wage way back when people didn't even think that women were economic powers and deserved a good salary. So there's so many women, I hate to name them all, and in politics you learn, don't name people. Don't name people, just say thank you to all the women out there for inspiring us every day.
All right. Well, of course, all the women who've run for office, every single one of them, win or lose, they inspire me because they took the step out. But of course, it's probably, I've mentioned this woman so many times since the time we've been up here, but my mother. I mean, this is a woman who, when we were homeless, she believed in me when my counselor told me, don't even bother applying to college. She believed that I could do it, and I did. I mean, she believed whatever I want to do, she's always like, you're always getting into something, and which is true. But I will say that she is there. She believes that I can achieve whatever I want. And her love is so immense that I would not be the person I am today without her. So she is somebody I want to be. I love her so much. So.
Yeah, for me, it's also my mother. She says she's shameless, but she has always gone after what she wants, and that's led by example. My sister and I are the same way, and my mom was always realistic with us and telling us that it was not the same starting point for us, that the odds were stacked against us. But she always said, I know you could do it, and I expect you to be better than your brothers and all the other men in the room. And so my mom came 15, pregnant, illegal immigrant, working in sweatshops, and somehow, even though the odds were stacked against her, when we talk about what that means, is now, the most financially successful person that I have been, and has instilled that business savviness in all of us. And then to top it off, has told me that I'm better than any man out there all my life, which is not something common in a lot of Latino households. We're told to just be quiet, sit back. And my mom has always told me to be the boss, and has led by example being the boss. And to this day is my boss. If someone puts me on check, it's her on a regular basis. But I'm always, inspired by her ability to be scrappy and figure it out and get around that, which is I think what we all have in common in this room and everyone that came before us, that someone told us no, and we said, that's not an option, we're gonna figure it out. No, it's not an option. No is at the expense of my community, and we're gonna get it done. So my mom has been my biggest inspiration.
Yes, my mother, my Shiro. I lost her almost 4 years ago now to leukemia, and it's been the greatest heartbreak of my life. I miss her every day, every moment of every day. But I remember when my mother was working for corporate America, and she was in between jobs, and she was 50 plus, and ageism is alive and well. And she was having a hard time getting a job, and she asked if I would look at her resume and give her some advice. And at the top of her resume, it said, "Mother to Ayanna Pressley." And this is, probably 15 years ago. And I said, well, Mom, I don't know if that's really helping. You can't have that on your resume. And she said, I can and I will. It is my proudest achievement.
Oh.
And I would just say, the title of being her daughter is the greatest one that I've ever held. And so she's been the most formidable influence in my life. And then finally, Barbara Jordan. And Shirley Chisholm. And I love that Chisholm quote. I won't use the whole thing, but just the end of it, where she was asked how she wanted to be remembered, and she said she wanted to be remembered as a black woman who dared to be herself. And that really is incredible, really does resonate with me.
Please give this extraordinary panel of women a big round of applause. Thank you. Stars. They are just incredible. Thank you so, so much.
I know, I can see it on everybody's faces how inspired we are today by the four of you. So thank you for being our inspirations today. We are so thrilled to have you here, and we are really, I'm looking at Ellen now, looking forward to actually seeing the action of your 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And have a seat for just a moment. I'm interrupting is what I'm doing. I'm interrupting because another inspiration is standing on this stage, and that's Jennifer Granholm, who is just a wonderful, wonderful leader for all of us. And you know her as governor, and you know her as a fighter for women and families. But I do not know if you know that she is also a poet.
No, I'm not.
She is a poet.
I'm a loser, but.
And so we are going to encourage her to share with us. Have a seat. We're going to do a little show here. Have a seat and encourage Governor Granholm to share with us an ode.
This is an
to
ode
Emily's list.
to Emily's List. And now is a moment for a little bit of silliness. So with apologies to Dr. Seuss, here we go. You ready? Oh, how long we've waited for this. For 30 years, we've been compiling a list. We all know that early money's like yeast, so the dough now has risen and we are ready to feast. Here in DC, it's gridlock times 10. All that can be fixed with some more estrogen. While women in politics still are outnumbered, Emily has elected over 800. The Senate now has 20 and counting. Ellen and Stephanie's ambitions are mounting. The boys had their fun. Let's turn a new leaf. It's time for a woman as commander-in-chief. So, what about Emily, you may inquire? What does she stand for? Can she inspire? Well, Emily's come of age at 30 years old. She's the worker who reels when the company's sold. She's the mom with the heat bill too high when it's cold. She's the girl who sees the boys win the gold. She's the CEO who's finally broken the mold. Emily is fearless and confident and bold. So batten down the hatches, amass the artillery. You know that in this crowd, Emily is Hillary. Now, Emily is Charnel and Christina and Ayana and Mickey too, but truth be told, Emily is you. You say the last election made us depressed? Was it our message that wasn't expressed? Did we fail in our GOTV? Did we not spend enough time and money? So I understand the need to grieve, but after these months, we are now up from our knees. We've got work to do, and here in the Capitol, we've rolled up our sleeves and we're ready for battle. Despite the election, the R's are afraid that we'll hold the White House for another decade. They're spending $900 million a joke. Despite what they say, things don't go better with Coke. So they're planning attacks. How low can they dive? But hey, Emily's been planning too. Since 1985. We look forward to a delicious Republican fight. Will Cruz and Santorum push them more to the right? Will Chris Christie tone down the volume a smidge? Have we heard the last of the George Washington Bridge? Will Rick Perry's memory again start to failin'? Can we please have the second coming of Sarah Palin? Did Jeb Bush stash his money offshore? Will his cars also get their own elevator? So The GOP's auditioning every conservative star looks like another fun-full clown car. Rand Paul, Scott Walker, Donald Trump blowing his horn. Just put up your feet and break out the popcorn. We'll just let them steep in their party of tea. We'll fight for the White House from Hawaii to D.C. For Emily, our candidate could be heaven sent. No finer words to us than Madame President.